Shalom, shalom, shalom. Want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God. Yahweh Shai being the name of his beloved Son, who the world inwardly calls Jesus. And this is the brother Yair Radad of WFI Indiana Camp, coming at y'all with a quick cold cut through the spirit, just going into having a sound mind, right? Having a sound mind or to be sober-minded is one of the same, right? To be sober-minded, when you read that in the scriptures, or to have a sound mind is just going into discipline, temperance, self-control. The list goes on. That's what having a sound mind is going into, and being able to kind of bring those thoughts into captivity, control those thoughts, as well as control the things that you actually do. And Lord, and while we in these fleshly bodies, we want to try to master that to the best of our ability, while we can, especially understanding the times that we're living in. So we're going to kick it off with the book of, we're going to kick it off with the book of Romans chapter 15, right? I bring this precept out all the time, because it's true. And this is what we do, right? This is the book of Romans chapter 15 and verse 4, it says, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope." And that's what we dive into this thing for. That's where we find our comfort from, right? That's where we find our wisdom from. That's where we get these different attributes from, as we get it from the precepts. We learn these different things from the precepts. We get comfort in the precepts. We know how to go about certain situations based off of the things that happened in the precepts, throughout history of our ancestors, man, our forefathers and our foremothers. So with that being said, right, let's kick it off with the book of Titus, chapter 2. It's the book of Titus, chapter 2 and verse 6. It says, "Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded," right? We just went into what sober-minded is actually talking about. And so that's what we're doing right now, right? This video is to exhort you, right, to be sober-minded and let you know that whatever thoughts is plaguing you, whether it be like depression, sorrowfulness, you just always stressed out in your mind, or you got wicked thoughts that pop up in your brain from whether that's lust, lasciviousness, concupiscence, or whether that's just evil thoughts that pop up in your mind. Some people deal with just evil thoughts, that pops up in their mind, and they instead of meditating on the words of the Lord, they can't get those thoughts out their mind, and a lot of people don't know how to, and that's okay. That's why you have, these videos to be able to go to and to go back to be able to understand how to do these different things, right? So on and so forth. So it says, "Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded in all things, showing thyself a pattern of good works, and doctrine showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity, sound speech that cannot be condemned, that he that is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you," right? And so in that, obviously, to be sober-minded, like we just said, having discipline, right, mentally, temperance, right, self-control, you understand, over the thoughts that you have. And also it says showing a pattern of good works, because that's what you want to do. You don't want to have a pattern of evil works or a pattern of things that's not pleasing in the sight of the Lord, but rather a pattern, you understand, of righteous works, a pattern of things that please the Most High, a pattern of good works at the end of the day. That's what you want to create habits in, right? And you may have to create, or you are going to have to create habits in rebuking these spirits. It got to be a habit for you. It can't be you just getting overcome by all these different things and damn spirits is on you. It got to be a habit of rebuking these spirits, whether that be through prayer, fasting, confessing your faults, rebuking yourself, examining yourself, having others, so on and so forth. The list goes on. All right, so let's go to the book, 2 Timothy. So I can use the big Bible. All right, let's go to the book of 2 Timothy. All right, chapter 1. The book of 2 Timothy, chapter 1, and verse 7. And it reads, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So you got to realize as well that in this walk, the Most High God has given you things. Everybody has a gift. Not only does everybody have a gift, but the Lord has given you these different things. You got to understand that being in this truth, and first of all, you being an Israelite, period, you have power with the Lord as long as you unlock those different things. How do you do that? You understand, obviously coming into this truth and submitting into the will of the Most High, right? But you, as an Israelite, in this truth, the Lord has given you different things, right? You have power. And until you realize and understand that you actually have power, you're not going to have complete faith in yourself to be able to do these different things or to overcome these different things, because you kind of doing it in a way that's kind of just like, oh, I hope, or I hope. No, you got to know, you got to pray, you understand, and put it in the Father's hands and understand that, hey, it's on his time and he will, and you got to, strengthen yourself as well, and strengthening yourself and understanding who you are. Right, I'm gonna keep saying that throughout this video, because a lot of times us as Israelites, it kind of gets lost, or you kind of forget that you actually got that power that the Most High God has given unto you. Right, I'm gonna read this one more time. Right, 2 Timothy chapter 1, right, in verse 7, it says, "For God hath given us," it's like he have not given us the spirit of fear. Right, so the Lord didn't give us the spirit of fear. So when you have that spirit, that's not of the Lord. It's like that's not of the Lord. That's a wicked spirit that's plaguing you. You understand? To have that spirit of fear. All right. It says, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Those are the spirits, you understand? Those are the attributes that the Lord has given to his people. All right. Let's go real quick. Let's go to Genesis, all right, chapter 32. So look at Genesis chapter 32 and get right to the point. In verse 20, or 28, right, it says, and he said that thy name shall be called no more Jacob, right, Yaakov in the Hebrew, which is supplanter. It says, but Israel, right, which is Yasher Allah in the Hebrew. It says, for as a prince thou hast power with God and with men, and has prevailed. So you got to remember that as well. And I know we say that a lot, but we got to say it. We got to say it a lot, because our people have to be reminded of those different things, right? I got to be reminded of that sometimes, man. That I'm an Israelite, you understand? Yasher Allah, Yah, right? Yasher Allah, right? Yah meaning he, Shar meaning prince, and Allah meaning power, right? Why? Because we have power with the Most High God. We're the princes of the Most High God. So understanding that, hey, you have to believe it and move in like manner. All right, don't move in an unsure. You moving in an unsure spirit. Well, I don't know. It might. No, you got to move in the spirit of, hey, I can overcome this. Move in the spirit of, I got power to be able to defeat this. Move in the spirit of, right, you got power over these spirits that try to plague you. You got power over these spirits that try to get an advantage of you. But when your mind frame is I don't necessarily say weak, right? But I mean, it is what it is. When your mind frame gets weakened, you give an advantage unto those spirits that's trying to plague you. Right? You got to always keep a strong mind frame. Always keep a sound mind, right? Always sober minded. All right. And, the steps to obtaining that, or not even obtaining it, but the steps to, putting that forth, is just to understand first who you are and the power that you actually hold within yourself because of who you are, and you being in this truth, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability, praying to the Most High God, doing those things that's pleasing in his sight. All right. It's power that comes, right, with that. Let's go to the book of Joshua. Let's get another one of the Lord, right, doing these things for us, right, giving us these different things, right? It's the book of Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8. Actually, I'm going to just get right to the point, right? Verse 9, It says, have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. That's another thing that you got to always believe and understand. The Lord is always with you. All throughout the precepts, you read about how the Lord was with our forefathers, how the Lord moved, you understand, with his people, how the Lord is in the midst of his people, how the Lord is with you. All right. Yahweh Shai understood it. David understood it. Joshua understood it. Moses understood it. And a lot of the Israelites understood it, right? When they was in the wilderness and throughout the process of time as well. But you got to understand it. You understand? We got to understand it even now. That what the Lord is with us whithersoever we go. So with that, he also commanded us of these different things, right? He said, have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage. So that's a command. The Lord is commanding you to be strong. It's not talking about benching 315, 405. No, that's talking about what? Being strong spiritually, mentally, emotionally, so on and so forth, but mainly spiritually, being strong to be able to do what? Continue to endure in this thing, to continue to put forth the good works of the Most High God. All right, to continue to walk in the way of the Lord. All right, and to be of a good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee, whither thou goest. Let's jump to chapter 5 real quick, because that was for real. The Lord really was. All right, this is the book of Joshua, chapter 5, and verse 13. It says, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversaries? And man, I love this account so much. All right, Joshua, he wasn't nothing to play with, right? But it says, verse 14, it says, and he said, nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? So the point is, the Lord actually was with them. The Lord is not just saying things, right? And then he just say it. He just say it. The Lord is not like man. Man that say something and then don't follow through with it. Or a man that say something and kind of just throwing it out there. Hey, the Lord said, hey, I'm with you whithersoever thou goest. And guess what? Hey, he was, man. All those wars, hey, guess what? The Lord was right there. All those things, all the journeys that they went throughout the wilderness, the Lord was right there. Right there in the chariot. You read about that in the book of, let's get that real quick. In the book of Exodus 23. All right. It's the book of Exodus, chapter 23, in verse 20. It says, behold, I send an angel before thee. It says, behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. All right, so it's talking about Yahweh Shai, right? And guess what? That chariot, right, that was following them throughout the wilderness, guess what? Hey, that was Yahweh Shai in there, man. All right, same thing you read about when you read the book of Joshua chapter 5. The Lord was with us when we was fighting against Amalek, against all these different people, against all these different nations. The Lord was with us. All right. Just like he said he would be. So let's go to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 30. Let's go into David. All right, because David, guess what? Hey, David had to be Salakia. Yeah, 30, right? This is the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 30. I'm going to start at verse 2, right? But David, hey, he had to have a sound mind. The situations that David got put in, a lot of people will fold, man. A lot of people will fold in the situations that David was in. All right, we get ready to read about one of those situations where David had a sound mind, meaning David was strong minded. You understand, he had a mind of discipline, he had a mind of temperance. All right, he had his emotions in check. All right, he didn't move in haste, but he was very prudent. All right, and with the sound mind. It's the book of 1 Samuel chapter 30 and verse 2. It says, and had taken, I'm going to start at 1. It says, and it came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captive that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. Right, so the place where they was dwelling at, it got burned down. Right, basically it got besieged. Basically, all right, and they took the women and children, right, captive. And they very sorrowful right now, as they should be. Anybody would be. You understand? You come back to everything burnt. Not only everything burnt, but you find out that your family's gone, your everybody's gone. All right, and you don't know what the end of it. You don't know what the end of them are. You don't know if they dead. You don't know what's going on, as far as if they dead, alive, or whatever the case may be. So they wept, man. But watch this. It says, I'm going to drop down to verse 6. It says, and David was greatly distressed. So this is not to say that you never going to feel these different emotions. You're never going to be sad. You're never going to be depressed. You're never going to be in distress. You're never going to be in a situation like these things are going to happen. We in this life. Sometimes people forget, like, this is a punishment for us, aka this is hell. This is our hell right now that we living in. So you're going to go through these different things. You're going to go through trials, tribulations, so on and so forth. That's all about, or that's all a part of being tried in the fire. We got to go through these different things. Why? Because our Savior, our King, went through the same things. And guess what? Hey, we got to take, just like how he took up his cross, we got to take up ours as well, which is symbolism for those trials and tribulations, so on and so forth. Right? But it says, and David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. So everybody, they basically they going in on David. All right, that probably ain't even half the stuff that was said. Yeah, it said they spake of stoning him. So they was thinking about killing him, stoning him. They thinking that they probably talking. You know how Jake is. Jake probably talking crazy. So a lot of Jake would too if you come back and your whole family gone and you don't know what the end of them are. Right? So they going in on David. A lot of men in this situation some would have crashed out, as they say. Some would have ended up arguing and going back and forth with their own people. Jake liked to argue a lot. Jake loved arguing in contentious manners and getting a point across, because Jake liked being right. But what did David do? It says, reading on in verse 6, but David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. He didn't argue back and forth. They wasn't having a shouting match. They didn't start throwing hands. Right? They didn't say, you know what, let's fade. Run me my fade. No, what did they do? Or what did David do? Hey, he encouraged himself in the Lord. Right? He had to be what? He had to be mentally strong. And have a sound mind. Because any man in that situation did a plethora of different things. Who knows? But a large percentage of that probably would have been things of unrighteousness, or I won't even say unrighteousness. A lot of those different things probably would have been moving in the spirit of not wisdom, basically. It wouldn't have been a lot of wise decisions made in that particular moment. All right. But David encouraged himself in the Lord. And it take a strong-willed, strong-minded, man or woman to be able to, in a situation like that, to keep it together and to encourage yourself in the Lord. And that's what you got to do in this thing as well. It's a lot of times where spirits come up against you and you got to encourage yourself in the Lord. That's why in the beginning we went through those different precepts about the power that you have being an Israelite in this truth with the Most High God. All those different things, you understand, that you have inside of you, you have to remember those things in the day of adversity. You got to remember those things when those spirits is coming up against you, whether it's slothfulness, whether it's lasciviousness, concupiscence, different lust, anger, strife, contention, just whatever spirit is plaguing you. In moments like that, you have to rely on the Most High and the power that He instilled inside of you, and bring those thoughts into captivity. You understand? And be sober-minded. All right, have a sound mind. And even on the scale of you just having those thoughts that come in your mind frame, and you want to have those thoughts right under control. When those thoughts come up, you gotta rebuke them. You gotta reprove them. All right. But let me finish this though. Right. It says, but David encouraged himself in the Lord his God, and David said unto Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David, and David inquired at the Lord. So what did David do in the time of distress, in the time when a lot of people might fold, a lot of people might move in haste, a lot of people would be imprudent and make imprudent decisions? What did David do? He encouraged himself in the Lord, understanding who He is and the power that He has. And what did he do? And he seeked the Most High God. Okay, and that's the same approach, and a beautiful one, that we got to remember to take in times like that as well. Like I said, whether that be a situation like that, whether it be you when it's just you and your thoughts, and those wicked thoughts might pop up, and you got to realize, hey, who you are. You're Israelite. You got power over these different spirits. You got power over these thoughts. All right, and what do you have to do? You got to rebuke them. All right, you got to encourage yourself in the Lord, right? Seek the Most High through what? Prayer. Pray unto the Most High God and rebuke these spirits that's trying to plague you and come to you, right? Real quick, let's go to Acts. All right, I believe I'm on. Yeah, Acts chapter 16 and verse 16, right? It's the book of Acts chapter 16 and verse 16, and it reads, and it came to pass as we went to prayer, Salakia. God, it says, Salakia, this is the book of Acts chapter 16 and verse 16. It says, and it came to pass as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which brought her master much gain by soothsaying. Right? So this woman had a wicked spirit upon her. And it says, verse 17, the same followed Paul and us and cried, saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God, which shew unto us the way of salvation. Right? So they being vexed by this evil spirit that's just following them. All right. It says, and this, it said, verse 18, it says, and this did she many days. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the spirit, I command thee in the name of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. You see, that's so. What did Paul do when he was being vexed by these spirits. Hey, he rebuked the spirit. And that's what we got to do. We got to rebuke and reprove these spirits as they come into your mind frame. All right. You can't have these thoughts come in your mind and then you entertain them. That's not being sober minded. That's not having a sound mind. When these thoughts come into your mind frame and you kind of entertain it, and you just thinking about these different things. All right. No, you gotta rebuke and reprove yourself. You gotta rebuke that thought or thoughts and reprove yourself. All right. And seek the Most High God and encourage yourself in the Lord. All right. Even if you can tell you giving yourself too much to, whether it be Netflix, whether it be a show, games, certain the playoffs. All right, all type of different things. There's a lot of stuff going on in the earth. All right, and even if you find yourself giving yourself into these different things, and it's like a lot too much, you got to be able to have a sound. You got to have a sound mind in that instant and to realize, like, man, I'm giving myself over too much to this stuff. All right, I gotta cut this stuff out. All right, and I gotta give more time to the Most High God. All right, I'm giving myself over to that too much. All right, let me cut this out. Let me cut that out. Let me cut this out. Okay, let me substitute this with a wider reading schedule, or substitute this with just listening to the Bible app. Right. So now instead of listening to whatever you listening to, or whatever podcast or whatever, now you substituting that with the words of the Lord, or a video breakdown, or whatever the case may be. Right. So you gotta rebuke and reprove that spirit, just like how Paul did. All right, let's go to the book of Sirach. All right, let's go to the book of Sirach. Right, and you go into this beautiful prayer in chapter 23, going into your mind and having scourges, right, over your thoughts. All right. It's the book of Sirach, chapter 23, and verse 1. And it reads, O Father and Governor of my whole life, leave me not to their counsels, and let me not fall by them, who will set scourges over my thoughts, and the discipline of wisdom over my heart, that they spare me not for my ignorances, and it pass not by my sins. Lest my ignorances increase, and my sins abound to my destruction, and I fall before mine adversaries, and my enemy rejoice over me, whose hope is far from mercy. So this is a beautiful prayer, right, that I would also recommend for brothers and sisters, just going into a lot of different things, but going into your mind frame, and being able to have discipline over your thoughts and scourges, and being able to have your mind, you understand, under subjection, right? Which is ultimately, you having your spirit, in subjection, and being able to put forth that temperance, put forth that, self-discipline, so on and so forth, and righteousness. I'll read a little bit more of this actually. Right, verse 4, it says, or it's like in verse 3, it says, Lest my ignorance is increased and my sins abound to my destruction, and I fall before mine adversaries, and mine enemy rejoice over me, whose hope is far from thy mercy. O Lord, Father and God of my life, give me not a proud look, but turn away from thy servants always a haughty mind. Turn away from me vain hopes and concupiscences, and thou shalt hold him up that is desirous always to serve thee. Let not the greediness of the belly nor the lust of the flesh take hold of me, and give not over me thy servant into an imprudent mind. Right, and like I said, y'all can check the rest of this prayer out in the rest of the chapter. It's a beautiful prayer, and this is a prayer that you could go to when you may be having trouble with that. You could just go and read this prayer, and then continue on in the steps that the Lord has, given to us through the spirit and power, of him. Let's go to the book of First Peter, chapter 4. All right. And we'll close out. All right, this is the book of First Peter, chapter 4, and verse 7. It says, but the end of all things is at hand, right? We living in the last days, and we're going to keep saying it. It shouldn't sound redundant unto you, because, we are. We living in the last days. You got all hell breaking loose throughout the four corners of the earth. And we're going to keep saying it because that's what's going on. We living in the last days. All hell is breaking loose throughout the four corners of the earth. And we every single day we getting closer and closer and closer to just World War III just going up. All right, it's already wars going on throughout the earth, but it's every single day it gets closer and closer to just at any given moment it could be like they say in the world, it could be up, so understanding and realizing that, right? Reading again, 1 Peter 4 and 7, it says, but the end of all things is at hand. Be therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And that's what we got to do. We got to be sober-minded in these last days. Watch unto prayer. Just like the Lord said, right? Let me get this last one. It's the book of Luke, chapter 16, or Salakia, chapter 18 and verse 1. And it says, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought to always pray and not faint. So in this walk, continue watching the signs of the time. Watching these different things that's going on should give you a boost and give you faith, right? On top of all the other things that should give you boosts, should give you faith in these last days, a boost of virtue from people praying for you, Lord willing, and understand that, we got to always watch and pray and not faint. All right, don't faint, don't get weary. But instead, just understand who you are, understand the power that the Most High God is giving you. Seek the Most High God, pray, be prudent, have a sound mind, discipline, temperance, be sober-minded in all things as much as possible, and attack these spirits. Stop playing defense all the time. Sometimes play the offense, right? You go on a fast, you attack that fast. You might fast twice. You attacking these different demons. All right. You don't always gotta wait for these spirits to you getting your ass whooped. You getting jumped. All right. So hey, you gotta attack these different spirits too as well. All right. But as long as you perceive what's going on and you perceive, the state is in which you're in, and you're able to examine yourself and call these different things out, like, what, I need to do this. All right, it's not always good to you in prophecy all the time, or you trying to look at these different breakdowns all the time. Sometimes you need to go and read something that your spirit need. Your spirit don't always need to know that Judith was one of the most beautiful women to walk in the nation of Israel. Like, that's not gonna help you. All right, or you in the book of Revelations all the time, like. Look, go and read what your spirit need. If you're struggling with certain things, it doesn't make sense to be trying to focus on the 7 heads and 10 horns. All week you focusing on the seven heads and 10 horns. No, brother. Take your ass to Psalms, Proverbs, Sirach. You understand the Gospels, whatever is sufficient for your spirit to be able to, attack whatever you're dealing with. Because these precepts is there for that. It's there for your comfort. It's there to help you. It's there to reprove you. It's there to rebuke you. All right. I'm gonna end on that precept. All right. Horrible. All right. It's the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16. It says, all scripture is given by inspiration of Yahweh and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Right? So, Lord willing, brothers and sisters, was edified through the Spirit. Lord willing, brothers and sisters, attack, these different spirits that come up against y'all. Lord willing, you continue to work on being sober-minded, having a sound mind, throughout the week, throughout the days, right? And Lord willing, brothers and sisters, have a mighty new moon, right? We just going into the new moon. So all praise to the Most High. Kwam Yasha Allah. Shalom.